Skyrim is a game that everybody loves, or loves to hate. Either way, there is a lot of love going around. And while this love-filled game may have abandoned many of its RPG roots, there are many things it improved on as well. So today we are talking about the top 5 lovers. Wait a second, this is the wrong script. Okay, so today we are talking about 5 things Skyrim did better than Oblivion. There are things that I like about Oblivion's enchanting system. 1. The menu is pretty good. 2. Something else, probably. But despite these clearly superior reasons, I would still say that Skyrim's enchanting system is better. For one, Oblivion's enchanting system was only accessible to people who had completed half of the Mages Guild quests. And if you're playing as a knight who doesn't do any magic, then doing the Mages Guild doesn't make a lot of sense. Plus, you'd probably just end up drowning in that well anyway. Oof! Oh! And sure, you could always just enchant stuff by getting the sigil stones from Oblivion gates, but honestly, I would rather just have crappy equipment than deal with that. And even when you do, the enchantment probably isn't gonna be very good. But not only is enchanting easier to access in Skyrim, it is just better in general. In Oblivion, the enchanting system was pretty limited. The enchantments you could apply weren't the strongest in the game, and you could only add 1 enchantment. In Skyrim, if you work hard enough for it, you can get the option to add 2 enchantments. That's 200% more enchantments. And while Skyrim may not have limitless freedom when it comes to enchanting, it certainly feels more extensive. And honestly, that's what I want in an Elder Scrolls game. The most obvious thing Skyrim did better than Oblivion is the graphics. I mean, just look at it. It looks pretty good. Oh wait, hold on a second. Let me switch back to Standard Edition and turn off the mods. Well, it still looks better than Oblivion. You can't deny that. And considering graphics is the most common reason people tell me for why they prefer Skyrim, I figured it was only fair to include it. Now personally, graphics aren't that important to me when it comes to games, which is why it's not very high up on this list. I mean, I really enjoyed the Wheel of Time video game, even though the graphics are terrible. I mean, what is even going on? I don't really know. But I recognize that bad graphics can be a major turnoff for some people. Such as this guy who said, I wouldn't play either of them. The graphics are horrible. And who am I to argue? Oblivion may be filled with more interesting quests to do, but Skyrim has more interesting things to see. And I don't mean graphically, I mean physically. Like when you're traveling down the road and you see a guy bringing a painted cow to some giants for sacrifice. Or you're scaling a mountain and you come across a bird's nest. It's these kinds of little touches that make Skyrim feel like a living world. In Oblivion, the wilderness felt barren. Sure, there were some trees and a wild boar, but it felt like that boar was just waiting for me to arrive, rather than going about his daily life, like they do in Skyrim. Even the bugs in Skyrim feel real. If you watch them, you can actually see them dive bomb to the water in an attempt to feed. That's pretty amazing. Also, the villages in Oblivion tend to feel like there isn't anything to them. Sure, if there's a quest involved, then there's a lot to see, but for most of these map markers, they're just kind of there. And I often wonder why. Why live in the middle of nowhere with no clear resource? It makes no sense. When you come across a house in Skyrim, you can almost always tell why they're living there. Maybe they're a fisherman, or a hunter, or a logger. Maybe they're just bandits. Either way, there's a story to discover. And speaking of bandits, I'm a bit confused as to why there are more bandits than ordinary citizens. You would think at this point, the entirety of Skyrim would have been overthrown by them. I mean, if these bandits decide to team up, they could probably defeat the Stormcloaks and the Imperials all at once. I'm getting off topic. My point is, Skyrim gives me more of a reason to actually go out and explore the world, rather than just fast travel from point to point. And in an open world game, that's pretty important. In my 5 things Oblivion did better than Skyrim video, I harped pretty hard on Skyrim's perk system. But despite my gripes, I actually really like it, because it wasn't the system itself that I had a problem with. It was the excuse that Bethesda gave for why there are no definitive class choices. But enough of that, because I think the whole leveling system as it is pretty good. It is by no means perfect, but it works rather well. I mean, it didn't make a lot of sense in Oblivion that I could level up a minor skill to master level, and yet it had no impact on my overall level in the game. You would think I would at least be level 2 by now. So having all skills add to your level makes a lot of sense to me. And all the additional perks this system adds really makes leveling a lot more interesting. Now I have a genuine reason to level up. A reward, as it were, and I'm easily enticed by rewards. Also, it improved that horrible scaled leveling system that Oblivion had. Nothing is worse than spending hours leveling up, getting super cool armor and weapons, and then struggling to kill a goblin. Really makes me feel like I hadn't improved at all. Stealth has always been a very integral part of the Elder Scrolls games, which is good for me since I love playing stealthy characters. Why run around swinging a sword and fighting enemies every 2 seconds when I could just not do that? And while stealth in Oblivion isn't bad, Skyrim definitely proved that it could be better. From the stealth roll to the throat-slitting one-hit kills, it is undeniable that Skyrim upped the ante. But it didn't just make the animations cooler, it also expanded upon the stealth systems. Now Pickpocket is its own class, which makes a lot of sense. All because I'm good at hiding from a guy with his back turned doesn't mean I know how to take his money without getting caught. And with all the cool perks, role-playing as the ultimate assassin is a much more truthful experience, because it means I know with relative certainty that I can kill a guy and not start a fight with everybody else in the area. Whereas in Oblivion, there was always the possibility that not only would the guy not be dead, but his health would barely take a hit. And if you wanted to be a stealth mage, well, you might as well forget about it, since any spell you cast would bring the guards for miles around. Now, to be fair, Skyrim didn't make stealth mage that fantastic, since you still don't get any bonuses for some absurd reason, and casting a spell will alert anyone in the area. But with the ability to silence your casting, at least that issue isn't as much of a problem. And the introduction of runes means you can do damage to your enemies without them knowing it was you, so that's something. I'm curious though, what are your opinions on this topic? Is there a different reason you prefer Skyrim over Oblivion? During my research for this video, I found it very difficult to find answers. And honestly, the most common one was graphics. Also combat, but I already discussed how Oblivion's combat is better in my 5 petty reasons Oblivion is better than Skyrim video. Speaking of which, maybe you should go check that video out while you're at it. Or you could watch my video on the 5 biggest jerks in Skyrim. Also, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I will see you guys in the next video.